All right, guys, today is super fun. I must say the most special guest I've had on here. Shannon Fraser has been a best friend for 15-ish years. We met in high school and have had such fun decades together ever since. She is also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so what I want to do throughout this season, now that we're on video, rather than me just sitting here giving you guys a sermon about what's going on in my life, I want to do some solo episodes with her. So you guys can keep up with what's going on with me. And, she knows more about me than most people. So we're just going to have honest conversations about like what I've been noticing on social media, what some patterns are that I need to work through in my life, some struggles, some great stuff, whatever's going on, just to keep you guys in the loop of my life and talk through it with somebody who not only walks it with me in real time, but also counsels people for a living. So we're going to talk about topics that are affecting me personally and that she and I see both in her practice and just sort of in the world online where people are talking about their relationships, the good and bad and ugly. So it's going to be really fun. They'll be a little bit shorter than the interviews, just so that if y'all don't have time for like an hour long deal, you can put these on in the car. And I really hope that they mean something to you. I hope that you'll send us topics that you're struggling with or are excited about or dealing with, and we can cover them on these episodes that I think we're going to call kind of counseling, because it kind of felt like counseling, but with my best friend. So y'all enjoy this first episode with Shannon Fraser. All right, guys, this is a really fun episode for me. You heard a little bit about why I want to do this in the intro. So you're going to get a few of these kind of counseling episodes with Shannon and me over the course of season 2. And I know I gave you a bit about her again in the intro, but want to welcome Shan to the studio, who is my bestie and our resident therapist.
It's true. Friend group therapist.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like force you to do this with me regularly over wine. So like this is a much more formal situation.
Yeah,
and I appreciate it.
I know. Where's the wine?
Yeah, it is morning, but wouldn't put it past us. And what's cool is I'm going to throw y'all, if you're watching the YouTube, if you're just listening, go look it up later. I'm going to throw y'all some of our favorite high school throwback photos. We have that's your 18th?
That
birthday?
Is 18th birthday party, yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of volume.
Side part is
hair.
very strong.
You can't even see that I have it on the right side of my head. And then Halloween, which,
I remember that
is always a favorite.
Yeah.
What was the song we always did? It was, I'm not going to remember it. Low. That's not appropriate, but that wasn't the one I was thinking about. Homecoming.
Oh, yes.
Yes. The theme was Get Laid, which I feel very uncomfortable about now.
Hold on. It was not.
As an adult
My
with moral
kids
ethics.
now go to school here and they just did this. It's the same theme this year. And it's just luau. I think we went with Get Laid.
Okay.
That was something that we did. I don't think our
forgive
teachers...
us, Jesus and Denise. That was not appropriate at 17. And prom, which is probably
always
the best.
Yep.
So anyway, Shan has been, we've been friends, what was that? 20 years almost? 15?
Yep. Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about what you do professionally now that they've seen our personal history.
Oh, yes, exactly. There's a professional side too. So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work mainly with couples, and then I see some individuals too. I work right here in this area and do that 3 days a week, and then home with my kids the other 2. But it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Working with couples through.
Why do you love it?
Oh, for so many reasons. I can't remember who said this. It may have been Brene Brown, who I plan to quote multiple times throughout this process. She said, you can't hate people close up. And I think it's just so easy to judge people. We have these preconceived notions of people that we see, and you watch people work through their mess and their hardships, and it's the most beautiful thing. It truly is. And you watch people realize things about themselves, about their partners, about their lives, and it's just really cool to be a witness to that.
Yeah, it's super awesome. You're great at it.
Well, thank you.
I can say not as a formal client ever, but as
my main client.
Your main client.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mentioned this before we started, but kind of what made me want to do this throughout the season is, number one, I want all of our followers to get to know me a little better, and I want to be transparent about good stuff, hard stuff,
Yeah.
interesting stuff that's happening in my life. And
Absolutely.
you probably know more of those details than anyone, except maybe Connor, although I bet you probably have some stuff on him that just hasn't come out yet. So personally, this is just fun for me, and I hope for all of y'all. And then also, I what really spurred it too is I read an article a couple months ago it was entitled like over therapized or something. Like I don't even know if that's a real word, but it was something along the lines of like with social media has become, or with social media has come great progress in people like not just embracing mental health and therapy specifically, which is a wonderful thing, but it's almost like the pendulum has swung so far that like it's like anything. People think they're experts in something because they've heard two terms. You know what I mean?
Well, there's so many books and everything. We have so much access to information.
So I think part of what I want to do is take this opportunity to bring our listeners into subjects that, I'm walking through in real time, that you see in real time, and sort of inform them in that way and just give them a way to maybe have some questions answered that they haven't had access, to a therapist to ask. Yeah. And I'll be the guiney pig. So,
awesome.
Like I said,
bring it on.
It's kind of counseling.
And
it's kind of like we're just having cocktails. So we'll see where we land. So the first thing I kind of have been thinking about is this idea of processing is like a word that I feel like I've recently heard or seen a lot of people be like, I just need time to process it. And I think why I wanted to talk about this is I know that is a habit, is a practice that will help in all of our relationships if we learn how to do it. But I also like see people say that and I'm like, does that just mean you don't want to deal with it? So that's sort of like the jumping off point. So I guess as a therapist, if I'm a client and you're like, okay, let's talk about how you process things. Like, what does that mean? Like, where do you even start?
Yeah, absolutely. So many people can define it in different ways, but I think at the end of the day, and I wrote this down, it's the act of taking time to sit with your feelings and thoughts. Like it is that simple. Like it is just taking the time and space to say, what is going on right now internally? How do I work through this?
Yeah.
It's kind of like untangling the mental mess of whatever the situation may be.
Yeah. Just, to put it simply, like digesting what's sitting in front of you.
Absolutely.
I, of course, because I'm a nerd, looked up definitions.
Always.
Webster says to integrate sensory information that is received so that an action or response is generated. And then I looked it up on Psychology Today, and it said a series of actions or operations or thoughts taken toward achieving a particular end. And I don't know why, without like going, we're not going to nerd out the whole time, but like those were interesting to me because maybe because they appealed to me, like the idea of doing it for an end or for a desired outcome maybe made it seem more feasible to me because it's like, okay, if this is the situation, how do I hope for it to be resolved? Or what do I, what is the outcome I would like for me and whomever is involved? And maybe that is a good direction. It's just a good finish line to help me work toward. Because if you're just like, let's just sit in your feelings, I'd be like, okay, podcast over, bye.
Right. Yeah. If I just have to sit in my feelings, I am not here for that.
But do you agree with that? Like, is that the approach or is that like mechanizing it too much?
So in a way, I think yes. It's a little rigid. And here's why. I think the idea of an end, if anything, I would change the definition that would change the word end to goal.
Okay.
We can have goals in our processing. Yeah. End is very finite, right? Like if it doesn't involve anyone else, then maybe you can have an end with it. But ultimately, it's like there's a lot of moving parts. What is my goal in processing this? Like, what am I looking for? What is my intention here?
Yeah. So maybe the goal, I do like that change, really can just be for someone who, maybe isn't accustomed to this or hasn't done counseling or hasn't practiced this like I was before I had to do trauma counseling.
Right.
Maybe the goal is really just to be able to experience and really name and like accept whatever the feeling is. And that seems so elementary, but I do think it's really hard for people who haven't had a catastrophic reason to have to learn how to do that.
Absolutely. It is hard.
Or just maybe we're raised in an environment where, emotions weren't vocalized. Like, I just think there's a lot of reasons people could stumble.
Well, of course. A lot of times when we're processing too, we're talking about difficult situations, right? Like I need time to process. It's not usually like, oh, I need time to process the fact that this really cool thing is happening.
Yeah,
I mean, that
right.
can be the case, but for the most part, we need a minute
Yeah.
to figure out what we're dealing with when it's something difficult. So when we're sitting with difficult emotions, no one wants to do that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a counselor. This is what I do for a living. I don't like sitting with my
That makes me feel
quote
better.
negative
Yeah.
emotions, right? Like it is hard for me to say, I'm dealing with this. I need a second to sit and process it. It's not supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Right? Like working through things and becoming stronger.
Yeah.
And, having self-awareness requires discomfort.
Yeah.
So processing can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And probably for the most part, it is.
Yeah, which is, I mean, aren't most things. Like, I'm
Exactly.
sitting here thinking, like, okay, I didn't want to do this burpees in my workout this morning, but it's
Right.
like that, in a way, is a spiritual exercise, like a mental spiritual exercise.
Yes.
And I think something that I'm really interested in to hear from you is, you mentioned, like, typically if you're processing something, it's not a positive emotion.
Right.
So I want to know, like, how, from kind of a bird's eye view, would it look different if I'm processing, like, capital T trauma, like I went through, little t trauma, like, for example, when Dad came out about his CMT and he's having a hard time and that's public for our family, and like,
Right.
how do we deal with that and support him, but, keep the,
Right.
boundaries and all these things. And then, like, the kind of lower level, which is probably what we deal with most, is just like everyday conflict.
Right. Which we have to process all of those
Right.
things.
But
right?
in different ways, or just like,
I think if you really boil it down, it probably is the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like sitting with hard emotion. Big T trauma, you guys can come up with a million things that are like really traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
But, for example, with Ben, that's not something that most people can do on their own.
Right.
Right. Our brains aren't even functioning
No.
in an appropriate way to be able to deal with that. And if you think about it too, we were created for Eden. Like we're not supposed to experience this. So in those situations, I would tell anyone you need to go see a therapist.
Yeah.
Right. Like we don't have the tools or the capacity
yeah.
in big trauma to be able to process
Yeah.
that.
Also, as a brief aside, can you talk about brain spotting and what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Since we're on capital
Yeah.
T trauma, we don't have to go into a whole thing about it. But that was the first thing I did after Ben passed was brain spotting, which Shannon does as well. And if I would just say this, if anyone's in a spot like that, it is so powerful. Like, I can't tell you enough. Like, to me, it just feels like, voodoo magic, because I don't know how it works, but she'll explain it and it's scientific. And it broke chains free from me. Like, could not remember. Do you remember me saying this? Like, I couldn't,
know.
like,
I know.
I didn't have memories of him. Like, it was like my brain locked them up to protect me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this treatment was it was like a waterfall. Like, it just came back. I'm not articulating it well because it felt like a miracle, but just touch on, just if people
Yeah.
are in that spot, that there is something that can really break that mental hold that you may be experiencing.
Absolutely. Okay, so you can brain spot smaller things too, but when it
Totally.
comes to big trauma, I'm going to say this, and it's weird to say, but I have been doing this for, let's see, brain spotting, 6 years now, and it blows me away every time to
Wow.
watch my clients come in and say, I feel like a new person. I am not, these things that were so triggering to me
Yes.
are not affecting me at all anymore. And I know the science behind it, but it truly is incredible. So brain spotting is this completely holistic approach. There's nothing attached to your brain. There's no chemicals or IVs or anything
you,
weird like that.
listen to beach sounds.
You have bilateral sounds in so that it stimulates both sides of the brain. And we basically take a pointer that a teacher would use, when they're pointing out a whiteboard, and move it within certain eye range. And from there, we can kind of pick up, oh, hey, we've hit a brain spot. We've hit a spot. And so I'm going to try not to get really nerdy, because when we talk about the brain, I
You can.
get on another level. But we have multiple parts of our brain, but the prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain where we are able to make adult decisions. It's probably not a good idea for me to do X because Y is happening, or
Right.
I need to pick my kids up from school, so I need to leave here at this time. And then the base of our brain is where we store trauma. Our prefrontal cortex can't handle it. Again, from my personal perspective, we were not created.
Yeah.
We weren't created for
Yeah.
trauma. And so it goes into the base of our brain, which essentially affects our entire body, right? And that's when people have anxiety and depression and chronic pain and bipolar. And not to say that those things can't be caused from other, genetic issues or whatever. But brain spotting allows us to find those points and help you release, essentially, this trauma spot through your prefrontal cortex, so you process it. So it's uncomfortable in that you talk about processing.
The experience is horrific. Like, and I was prepared for that. You prepared me, my therapist. I mean, you, from the non-scientific experiential perspective, it puts you back in the scene of the trauma, and you feel everything that you felt in that moment, and in doing so, it just, like the word we used before, to me at least, it felt like I digested the sorrow and pain and fear emotions out of it. And now I can be there and still obviously grieve the moment and the situation and feel sad that it happened, but it doesn't send me into a tailspin.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I could notice the difference where before you would kind of lock up
Yeah.
when we were trying to talk about it.
Yeah.
And afterward, how many times did you do it?
2 or 3.
Okay, I was going to say you did it a couple of times at least. You could talk about it, experience it, feel sad, but it not be this traumatic experience where your whole body is kind of seizing up talking about trauma.
Yeah,
like you were able to process it it became a fact of what happened.
Correct.
And you could feel your emotions,
Correct.
but they weren't overcoming.
Yes, I felt like I could be in that moment in that scene more as a character than a victim of the feelings that happened in real time. So anyway, that was a bit of an aside on that, but I think it's powerful enough that if people are in a big T trauma or in a little T, just in you
can do it for all sorts of things.
Anything.
Yeah.
That's a powerful option, and to ask a therapist if that's something they're certified in, or to refer you to somebody who can do it. Okay, that's my endorsement for brain spotting.
Brain spotting.
But kind of to bring it back to the everyday level in like life right now, obviously you've been married 11 years.
Yes.
Yes. I was such a
11 years.
skinny, muscular child at your wedding.
I was a child at my wedding.
It was such a great dress. Anyway, so now obviously we've always like been in each other's lives, but I look to you as a trusted friend, and I look to you as someone a decade plus ahead of me in a marriage. And we've had lots of conversations this summer just about like communication and conflict styles, and the processing is, again, kind of what brought me here, is that I'm learning not just I've learned kind of how I need to process emotions, but especially when you enter a marriage or a relationship, or even, a close working relationship with someone, people process stuff so differently and on such different time scales. So I think I just want to start like where, if you don't know how you best process information, like if I come to you and I'm like, this is the situation with my spouse, this is the situation with my partner at work, and there's tension or conflict, and I'm like, and you said, okay, well, let's process through what happened. I'm like, I don't need, like, how do I learn how I do it? Like some people are verbal processors. I don't think I'm a verbal processor. Maybe I am, but
I think I just think you process and then you talk about it.
Yes, but I'm saying, some people have to
they have to get it
speak,
out,
or it's like a hamster wheel.
Yes, that's
so.
me.
Is it just kind of trial and error? Like,
so is the question, is it trial and error as far as figuring out with your partner?
Figuring out yourself first.
Oh, figure out yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think for the most part, when you could sit here right now, whether you're in your car or at work or whatever it is, and say, when something happens and it comes up and it feels overwhelming, what is my move? What do I do?
Yeah. So just
and I think from
what's
there,
your first move?
Right. So do you run to someone to be like, hey, I need to process this with you, or talk to you? You may not even say process. Or do you get quiet? Do you withdraw and you start thinking about it yourself? Or do you just shut down?
Yeah.
Probably our three.
Yeah.
The 3 options.
So look at the patterns of when something
right.
happens that is discomforting. What's your first move?
What's
and
your
honestly,
first move?
this may not be technical, but I would add to it. I think what I've noticed is I'm a like physical processor. Like I have to when I've have anxiety, which is not a lot, but then when I do have it, it's so clear that something's going on that I need the body part to work out. Like I need to walk, I need to spin, and that like just brings my mental temperature down enough to be like, okay, what am I actually feeling?
Well, and great self-awareness. It's one of the best things you can do when you feel overwhelmed, like move your body.
Yeah. So once we learn that, okay, so here's the situation. Like Connor and I had to sit down a few weeks ago to do some paperwork for like a financial thing we're doing. And he came into it kind of rough day at work, like whatever. So gave him an hour to kind of unwind. And then I was like, okay, we need to do this paperwork. He just didn't want to do it. And I was like, it's literally due tomorrow. Like 2 days ago, you asked me, could we do it Thursday instead of Tuesday? And I said, I'm happy to do that. But just so you know, like we won't have another option. So anyway, that was the scenario. He comes in very frustrated. The computer is not working. So he's like banging on the computer, trying to do the Excel. And I was like, I get you don't want to do this right now. I'm sorry, but we have to. Like, can you please try to not bring your frustration into this situation?
Right.
And he did try. And then to no avail, frustration explodes. Like, I feel like, and I'm sitting there like, I could have done this so much more efficiently, obviously. And so this is a nothing situation. And there was no fighting about the actual finances or the document or anything like that. But I think this is what spurred in my mind. Like once that happened, my impulse is to sit there until we talk it out and get the resolution and make sure we're good. And he needed to go outside for 25 minutes. And God bless him. He is a great communicator and he's very aware of his emotions. And he said, I'm not doing this because I'm mad at you. I'm doing this because I need 20 minutes to like figure out what I want to say.
Right.
And that frustrated the hell out of me. So I guess I'm like, if we came to you, and I get it now, obviously we're good and this is a silly example, but I think these are the things that happen most often, right? It's like, my partner needs time and I feel for 20 minutes like, okay, this marriage is unraveling because we can't come to a solution here. So like, how do we manage different processing times? Because that's what that was. I mean, in
100%. Well, first of all, welcome to marriage.
Yeah, great.
I don't think, I mean, this is not true, but I very rarely see people that have similar processing times. And there's a reason for that. You know, we're like attracted to people who are opposite of us.
Yeah.
Second, I'm just going to throw this out there as a little bit of marriage advice. Never talk about money when flustered.
Well, yes. That's
not that there was anything crazy
at
going
the bottom,
on, but yes, asterisk at the bottom. So this is, I mean, truly probably the majority of what I see where people have different processing times and ways that they process. And you are a resolution girl, you know? Like it's
always.
Just, there's something really comforting about having the resolve, knowing that everything's okay, checking off, you know, the box of, okay, we did this, we can get this done. And Connor, and I, you know, don't want to put all men into one box because this is not true, but men typically, especially when there's bigger emotions involved, need a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. Again, sorry to all the men out there.
So that is common. You do see that.
Oh, yeah, like 90% of the time.
Okay, 90% feels like it's a pretty big box.
And not to say that, you know, men aren't aware or capable of expressing their emotions. Sometimes it just takes them a little bit longer to get to, oh, here's what I'm feeling actually. Like here's the real primary emotion. Yeah. And that felt vulnerable to initially come with that. So I kind of come with being frustrated is a lot easier.
Yeah,
than
for sure.
Whatever it may be. So, all right, here's my spiel, I guess, with this. We have different processing times. The greatest thing that we can offer to our partner is our authentic feelings and then respect for theirs, right? So in this situation, you can come to Connor and say, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed because I feel like we need to get this done and it makes me nervous to feel like we're not getting something turned in that we're supposed to get turned in. It makes me feel flustered and I don't know what to do with that. I can see you're flustered, you know, and knowing Connor, he probably could say, yes, I'm flustered. I need a minute, right? He's good at self-aware. Yeah. And, you know, then we say, what do you need right now? Here's what I need. What do you need right now? Right. And then I know for you, the fear comes up of, oh, I need a break. And then we never come back to it.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's what you're actually scared of.
Yes, I am.
And so that's when you guys make a decision. Hey, okay, take the time that you need to process, but tell me when we're talking about this. Like, I won't put the
Yes.
deadline on it. You tell me when we can come
Yes,
back and
yes,
talk to
yes.
this.
Because to me, that feels like safety and security of like, we're not going to
Yes.
sweep it under the rug. Like, I'm not
Yes.
avoiding you. I just have to learn the patience and the trust to respect
Totally.
that time. And he has to commit, which to his credit, the moral of the story is we did realize that he doesn't have the mental capacity to do that after a work day. And
Yeah.
he said 25 minutes later when we talked about it, it's not that I don't want to do this with you. It's not that I'm upset with you. He's like, but when we have
Right.
these things, I can't give you my best and if it's after work, and let's just schedule a time at 3:30 to do it. And I was like,
100%.
resolution girl is pumped. This is all I wanted 20 minutes ago. But he
100%.
needed 20 minutes to get there to calmly say, okay, this has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with me. I'm tapped out. And to give you my best in this sort of scenario, we've got to schedule it in my workday.
I love him. I'm so proud of him.
I know, I love him
Truly.
too.
I mean, it's the self-awareness to say, you know what? I actually don't think I can do this after work.
Yeah.
And it takes people a while to realize this kind of stuff,
Yes, it
right? Like,
does.
I think it took Brendan and I like 5 years to realize that we don't need to have conversations late at night because we're tired and
Oh
cranky.
gosh, yes, I
You
know.
know, so-
not on Friday afternoon.
No,
like
no.
I feel like
No.
timing is everything. You know,
Timing
Allison
is
says timing is everything.
everything.
But I hope that's encouraging to people who, if you are the person who needs space, or if you're the person who needs the resolution, not again to put two separate boxes, two separate camps.
Right.
But it's to validate. It's really hard to wait when what you want is resolution. And it's also not going to do anything but make the outcome worse if I try to push him to get there before he
Right.
can get there.
You're pushing his processing time.
Yes. And I think that I have, in the past, historically pushed too hard for resolution to the detriment of restoring, I guess, is the right word. Repairing.
And okay,
yeah.
so we actually did a practice run of this podcast because I don't do a lot of podcasts a while ago, and we were just kind of talking after, and we talked about the difference in restoration
Yeah.
versus repair or resolve. That's what I think it was, resolve
Yeah.
versus repair. And it has stuck with me ever since that we have to be really mindful when we go into conversations with our partners or our friends or our parents or our kids, whoever that may be. What are we actually looking for?
Yeah.
Like, what does resolve
Yeah.
actually mean? What does a resolution actually mean? Because it may be different.
Yeah.
Right? Like, his resolution may be different from yours. At the end of the day, what grows a marriage, what grows a relationship is repair. Hey, I came at this really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Here's what I was
something
actually...
I've never had to say.
Never. Me either.
I ask very gentle questions.
Oh, gosh. That's why we're friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have to, what are we actually looking for here?
Yeah.
Because repair is what grows the marriage. Finding resolutions.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in a way, yes, it's great if you can
Yeah.
find resolutions to things, but repair is like, hey, I'm owning my role and I'm respecting your emotions and your process
Yeah.
time. And we're going to work through this together based on the emotions that we know we're both feeling.
Yeah. And I think I love the way that you have said, ask the question, what do you need? And I think underneath it, even though I want a resolution, what I need is safety and security, that this isn't going to break us. And
Yeah.
also it's not going to haunt us forever, but we don't have to fix it in one fell swoop,
Yes.
And so that's why I think this conversation is really important, because I think, at least, I don't want to say people, but I have that perspective of like, why can't we just fix this once? And it's just like, that's so untrue and like,
of course we want it,
narrow-minded,
though.
and some things are going to be
Takes time.
a recurring point of conflict because
Yes.
you're different people and you process differently at different times. And so to switch that mindset of, okay, I'm glad we got that. Like, I'm glad we got that conclusion that we need to do it during work hours. But the
Yeah.
bottom line is, we came back together. We enjoyed dinner together. We had a good night together. Like, we were repaired, where it could have
Right.
just been huffy and hostile for no reason at all.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what I was experiencing with the different processing times. The last thing I kind of want to chat through is, how do we be aware of ourselves, of our partners, our close friends, our siblings, whatever, when we use this processing time either to avoid or to like overly vent or share with people that don't need, like, to be in an echo chamber. Like, I think some people are like, oh, I just need to process this with you. And you're looking for someone to put fuel on your fire, and that is never going to help.
Yeah, I know. And that's one of the most toxic things that we can get caught up in because it feels good.
Yeah, of course.
To have
be
someone validate
validated,
that you're feeling. And so, I would say for the most part, we probably know deep down who our safe people are, right? Not everyone is safe.
No.
By any means. Brene Brown says, if you have one person that you feel safe, that you can fully let your guard down and talk to, you are doing well in life. Like just one. So we know who's going to be honest with us, give us authentic feedback, and validate us, right? Like we want the combination of all of it. Like, I hear you. That makes sense. I get that you're sad.
Yeah.
And you can't act like that.
Yeah.
Like that's a good friend.
Yes. You need the call out too.
Yes.
I think that's what I would like. And definitely, the people who, and everyone's, I don't want to say be on your side, but people who love you are going to be supportive of you and try to like understand where you're coming from and why it's hurting you. But if you have the person who never gives you the call out, like maybe check to find another safe person.
Yeah, check in with that.
Because it's not going to help you in any way in the long run.
As iron sharpens iron.
And then I guess if, say, the shoe's on the other foot, like whoever you're in a conflict with seems to be using the processing to avoid. Like, how's a kind way to kind of call that out?
Yeah. So, I'm going to talk more about your spouse because we can't necessarily make everyone show up, right? Like, there are close friends that we can say, hey, I'm feeling hurt because I feel like you're avoiding what I'm saying.
Yes.
We can only do so much. Other than, I always say, just tell people how you feel.
Yeah.
Right? And process before. Mm-hmm. Come to them with what you're feeling, not anything that you want to accuse them of.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like you're avoiding what I'm trying to say. I feel like you're going away. It's making me feel scared or hurt or whatever that is. But yes, we're going to encounter these people. We're going to be married to these people. Mm-hmm. And the best thing we can do is, hey, here's what I need. Mm-hmm. It seems like this is hard for you. Like, what do you need from me? What would make you feel safe?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
If at some point your partner is avoiding you, is avoiding all conflict, maybe it's time to call someone.
Third party.
We maybe need a third party. But for the most part, when we can break it down, or as a lot of the therapists in my world say, slice it really thin, right? And we make something big come down to something simple. Like, at the end of the day, I'm actually really nervous to talk about this. Yeah. Or this is really intimidating to me.
Yeah.
Or this brings up feelings of my childhood. Whatever that is, if we can get to the core of like what's happening for you when we talk about this. Like, what makes you feel the need to go away?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying everyone's going to be able to answer that. Those are big questions.
Right. But it's a gentle approach versus you're just not doing this even though we've put it on it. Like, it's not accusatory. It's if you're genuine, you're asking, like, it's clear this is not a thing that you feel comfortable doing. Like, how can we make this better?
Right. I'm telling you a need I have.
Sets the table so much more generously to, like, actually get somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because you're coming at it vulnerably. Yeah. Like, you're soft.
Yeah. And I like, what did you say? Slice it thin?
Yeah, we slice it thin to, like, little pieces that we can eat.
Yeah. I just finished a book with a guy we're going to have on here that's really awesome. He's a neurosurgeon, and he also lost his 19-year-old son like a decade ago. So he's like coming at grief and hope and healing literally neurologically and scripturally and experientially. It's really awesome. I can't wait to talk to him.
I can't wait to hear this
one. And something he kept saying throughout the book that one of his surgical mentors, always said to them was, don't make everything an operation. Like, don't think of it as a 6-hour operation. Yeah. Think of it as one specific task at a time.
I love that.
I thought that was so cool.
I love that.
I don't know. It's like totally on theme of what we're talking about, but the thin, slice it thin. That's what kind of made me think about it. And like, they tell you, marriage counseling, whatever, like, don't bring in never and always. Like, don't make it about a situation that happened 3 days ago. Like, slice it thin. What's the task at hand? What's making you unwilling or afraid,
what are you actually
or
feeling
to bring to it? And what am I? And let's repair. And then if we can get a resolution, cherry on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes the resolution is just, wow, I understand you so much better.
Right.
I get where you're coming from, and that helps me to have empathy.
Yeah.
Like, that's a
And
beautiful
that's really cool.
resolve. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes the night end well, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cuddly.
Yes. That is it. Yes, exactly.
Oh, man. Well, I think this is fun. I hope
Oh, I'm pumped for this.
everybody enjoys this. There's, no fancy sign off. I think I just want to sit down with you on occasion and like share what's going on and get your
Yeah.
insight, because I know it's stuff, good and bad, that everybody else is going through. And so to have my safe person who also has the credentials and training that you have, I think is obviously something I always take advantage of, but
Please do.
I wanted everybody else to get to take advantage of it too.
Well, and so everyone knows Mattie is also my unpaid therapist. So it goes both ways.
It's a burden and an honor, but as an Enneagram 3 who loves to be the best at everything,
Yeah.
to be a therapist to a therapist,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah, you are. You're my safe place.
Love you, sister.
Love you.